So good afternoon, students. So you're ready to study for the week 5? It's like every week there's fewer and fewer students. So I guess I'm attracting fewer and fewer students. I figured that for the quizzes, everybody will show up so that they could do well on the quiz, and then everything else people come and go, you know. But I would, if it were me, I would show up just for the quizzes, just so I would do well on quizzes. Anyway, so how are you doing this week, Sarah?
Pretty good. Just before this opened, I was working on my my essay for this week.
So everybody
More than halfway done.
You're halfway done? Wow.
More than halfway done with it, yeah.
Do you find it easy to do the essay?
Yeah, fairly easy. It's just like figuring out how to word things specifically and whatnot, and I think just making sure I have proper punctuation is the one thing that I'm like, oh gosh, am I doing it right?
Well, you could always go to Grammarly to make sure you did it right?
Yeah.
Everybody's going to Grammarly. How about you, Sam? How are you doing on your essay?
I had a question about the essay because I'm confused with what other people are saying. Are we going to take the essay from the second week?
Oh, yeah,
And-
you're going to be doing the same essay for week 2, week 4, and week 6. So, yeah, you're doing the same essay. Whatever you were writing about in week 2, that's what you're going to write about in week 4. You're going to write your rough draft. Then you're going to write a final draft of that same essay in week 6.
Okay, so it's not me. I need to rewrite it the way that I had the old one into this new one.
Yeah, that's all you're going to do for week 4 is you're going to transform your outline into a 5-paragraph rough draft.
Okay.
And use APA and make sure you use one source per paragraph if one in-text citation per paragraph if you're going to use APA. Now for Essay 1, the APA, the in-text citation is voluntary. In other words, you don't have to have APA in-text citations. But for Essay 2, you have to have at least one APA in-text citation. So I tell students to practice doing APA for the first one so you'll be much better at the second one. How about you, Kelly? How are you doing?
I'm working on it.
Is it hard or easy?
It's hard to say because I had done my outline wrong or something, so it's hard
Yeah.
to know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, the better you have your outline, the better you have. So the better you have, do you want to go over your essay after we go over the quiz?
No?
Oh, okay. So
My own essay?
all right, so that's what I offer. I offer students help with their writing after I go over the main lesson. So if people have questions about how to do a thesis statement or any other questions, then we could have a question and answer session after we go over the main lesson. So everybody ready to go over the quiz?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let's see if I have it here. There we go. So today's lesson, how do you like this one, huh? Make sure your story has purpose, drama, suspense, and a moral. So the moral of the story is your thesis, to keep the reader hooked to your prose. Remember, you are the hero of your story. So that's mainly for creative writing, but it applies a little bit to this. All right, so this week we're going to go over the week 5 quiz prep. Then we're going to do the week 5 practice quiz, and then we're going to go over the week 4 rough draft assignment. So let's get into the week 5 quiz. So week 5 prep, study this before you take your week 5 grammar quiz. So the week 5 grammar quiz is basically about punctuation. And so when we write dialogue, we have to have a beginning punctuation and an end, beginning quotation mark and an ending quotation mark. And we use italics around movie titles, book titles, or any other title. So remember these 2 rules. They are crucial for this quiz. And so here, quotation marks are used to quote dialogue. So you must use both the beginning and an ending quotation mark around dialogue. So it's wrong when you say, John says, Michael is here, because you're missing an ending quotation mark. And it's wrong when you say, John says, Michael is here, because you're missing a beginning quotation mark. And it's correct to say, John says, and then you have a beginning quotation mark and you have an ending quotation mark. Then your quiz question would be, is this a correct or incorrect sentence? Is there a missing quotation mark? So which one is correct? A, B, or C? And so A is not correct because it's missing the beginning quotation mark. B is not correct because it's missing the end quotation mark. C is correct because it has a beginning quotation mark and an end quotation mark. Everybody got that? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes.
on the quiz, watch out for incomplete quotation marks because there are going to be a lot of quiz questions about like this. So you got to look at it carefully. You must have quotation marks around both sides of your quotation. So this is an actual quiz question. Let me see if I can bring everything down so that everything is together. And that's something like that. In Jason Bourne, so why are these sentences wrong? In Jason Bourne, Nicky Parson cryptically tells Jason, remembering everything doesn't mean you know everything. And so in this sentence, what's wrong with this sentence? Although I
Missing
wrote,
the
yeah,
end quotation mark.
it's missing an end quotation mark. In this one, it's missing remembering everything doesn't mean you know everything. It's actually missing both. Okay, so it's missing a beginning quotation mark, and I think that end quotation, and it's missing an end quotation mark. It's actually missing both. So if I were to do this and this, now it's correct, okay? But if I take away the quotation marks like this, then it's not correct. So it's missing a beginning quotation mark. So these sentences are wrong because you need quotation marks on both sides of what someone is saying. So in Jason Bourne, Nicky Parson cryptically tells Jason, remembering everything doesn't mean you know everything. So here you have the beginning quotation mark and the end quotation mark. Marvell says, when do we use quotation marks? Is it used for talking? This sentence is correct because it has a beginning quotation mark and an ending quotation mark. So my dad's favorite saying is, don't pull tomorrow's cloud over today's over today's sunshine. Where is the missing quotation mark? So in this sentence, where would I put the missing quotation mark?
Before don't.
Before don't. So this becomes the answer because it says before or after don't. Yes. So when you have titles, you have to italicize the title. So correct. Find a truly original idea. It is the only way I will ever distinguish myself. It is the only way I will matter. John Nash moans in A Beautiful Mind. So A Beautiful Mind was a movie. Did anybody see the movie A Beautiful Mind?
I think a long time ago.
Oh, it's
yeah.
from the 80s. This is like from 1980 something. And so John Nash was a famous mathematician. So he thought that math was beautiful. So hence A Beautiful Mind. So here you have to italicize the movie title, Beautiful Mind. I saw a movie named Gone with the Wind. So you have to italicize Gone with the Wind. If I simply say I saw a movie named Gone with the Wind with no italics, then that's incorrect. What is wrong with these sentences? Emily Blunt's character in The Devil Wears Prada explains, I'm just one stomach flu away from my goal weight. And so here, what's wrong with this sentence?
Devil Wears Prada. It's not
Italicized.
italic?
How many of you saw the movie Devil Wears Prada?
That's
I
my
saw that.
sentence. That's my life statement. I flew away from my goal weight.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like you want to wear Prada. Oh, all right.
No.
So Devil Wears Prada, that was a great movie, also from the 80s. I think that's also from the 80s. So whoever made this quiz really likes old movies. So here, The Devil Wears Prada needs to be italicized. And so
Would that also include like book titles? Like let's say
Yes.
if I
Yes.
write my essay and I
yes.
bring the title to
Yes.
the
Article titles, book titles, movie titles, any kind of titles all need italics. Used to be we underlined all of this stuff, but what happened was because now when something now is underlined on the net, everybody thinks that's some kind of link. And so everybody will keep clicking on that underlined title. Well, how come nothing happens? So after that, APA decided, okay, we're not going to underline all the titles anymore because people confuse it with links. Now we're going to tell people to italicize all the titles. So that's the story behind why we italicize rather than underline titles. Did you know that? That's when I was before internet, everybody underlined titles. So anyone who's old enough to remember before internet will know that. So there's nobody here, and I know there's nobody here that's old enough to remember that. Anyone old enough remember?
I remember.
You remember underlining your titles back in elementary school?
56 years old.
Well, at least you remember it. Okay.
Yeah.
So nowadays we italicize it. Which of these sentences are correct? A, B, C, or D? Or none of the
D.
above?
None of them.
None of them, because Devil Wears Prada is not italicized. And so everybody understand the quotation marks and all that stuff? Okay, let's move on to singular. Oh, this is easy. This is a review of week 1. So what is a plural subject? So plural subject means when you have more than one person, more than one item, more than one of something. And so the coats are used in the winter, so that's more than one coat, so that's a plural subject. A coat or the coat is old, that's a singular subject because you have one coat. And so if I say books are written to be read, is that a singular or plural subject?
It's a singular.
It's plural. Books.
The
Books.
coat?
No,
Oh, I thought you were
books.
reading the coat.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I meant is books singular or plural? And here it's plural because we're talking about more than one subject. The coats were packed away for summer. So here you have a singular or a is it singular or plural? Coats.
Plural.
Plural. The coat was packed away for summer, and this one is
Singular.
Singular.
singular. Yes. So that's it for that one. That's like a review of week 1. Capitalization. So capitalize famous names and capitalize proper nouns. That's also a review of whenever we have proper nouns or titles. So the French people live in France. So we always capitalize ethnicity and countries. Uncle Bob lives in Kansas. So you have to, because that's somebody's name, Uncle Bob, King James, any kind of title, you have to capitalize, Uncle Bob. But if I simply say, my uncle lives in Kansas, you don't have to capitalize that. So this is also review of. So if I say something like, let's see, my uncle lives in Kansas. Is this correct or incorrect?
Incorrect. Wait.
Incorrect.
Make up your...
Partially correct, partially incorrect.
Uncle needs to be a small U.
That's correct, yes. You have to make
Yeah.
this is incorrect because it has to be a small u. It's only a big U if it's someone's name, yes. So if I say Uncle Bob, Uncle Sam, oh yeah, that's actually Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam wants you, ha ha ha. President Lincoln is the 16th U.S. president. So here you have a title, President Lincoln, and then here you have to capitalize President Lincoln. And 16th U.S. president is also a title, so you have to capitalize this one. And I already have my uncle lives in Kansas, so that's correct. So I don't have to write it twice. There it goes. And then of course I like to drive is wrong, and you have to write I like to drive. So here you have a slightly more peaceful France was restored when Napoleon Bonaparte rose to power in 1799. And so this is actually correct because you have France is capitalized, and Napoleon Bonaparte is capitalized. The grandchildren show great respect for Grandma Janet. Is this correct or incorrect?
Correct.
Correct. My grandma was great. Her name was Grandma Nai, which was my grandmother's name. Is this correct or incorrect?
Correct.
Correct. So here, I love my uncle. Okay, this is on your quiz. What is wrong with these sentences? I love my Uncle Bob because he always makes me laugh.
Uncle needs to be capitalized.
Yes. When I missed the bus, I called for a taxi.
Aye.
I. So you always capitalize names of countries and names of famous people. So in your opinion, which sentence shows proper capitalization? And then this should be A or B. And then A and then B. So which one has proper capitalization? Is it A, B?
Neither of them.
Neither of them, that's correct. Because however he quickly declared himself, this should be Emperor Napoleon I and led a French invasion of Russia. Here you have to have the French invasion. French has to be capitalized. So that's why this one is wrong. And that's it. So in your opinion, which sentence shows proper in other words, which one is correct? So this is an actual quiz question. So which one is correct? A, B, C, D, A, B, C, or D?
D.
D as in dog? This one?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
So none of them are
You're
correct.
right.
So, however, he quickly declared himself. So this is correct, but you need French and Russia. So names of countries. So that's not correct. It needs to be capitalized. Here, emperor needs to be capitalized. So B is not correct. C, Emperor, Napoleon, everything needs to be capitalized. So C is not correct. So the answer is none of the above. And I believe I did this one. What is wrong with this with these sentences? So here, President of the United States needs to be capitalized. And here, President, here the first word of any sentence needs to be capitalized. So the correct answer would be President Abraham Lincoln was the 16th President of the United States. So is everybody clear on capitalization?
Yeah.
Okay, now we're going on to comma usage and the dependent clause. So a dependent clause is whenever you have a subject, a verb, and it has an incomplete thought. So if I say something like, when Sarah walked her dog, is that a complete or incomplete sentence?
Incomplete.
Incomplete. So therefore, it's a dependent clause. If I simply say, Sarah walked her dog, is that an independent or dependent clause?
That's independent because it's a complete sentence.
It is a complete sentence. So when we have a dependent clause, we have an incomplete thought. When we have a independent clause, we have a complete thought. Every time we have a dependent clause, we have a sentence fragment. And we form dependent clauses by adding subordinating conjunctions like when, although, if. And then you can Google yourself subordinating clauses so you know how to form sentences with subordinating clauses. When we have a dependent clause and an independent clause together as one sentence, that's known as a complex sentence. So when I go over week 7, I will go over the difference between a simple sentence, a compound sentence, and a complex sentence. So any sentence that has a dependent clause is known as a complex sentence. And so when one of these dependent clauses come at the beginning of the sentence, you need a comma. So if I say, when John goes to the store, dependent clause, comma, he wears his mask. But when the dependent clause comes at the end of the sentence, you don't need a comma. John wears his mask when he goes to the store. The exception is when you have adjective clauses like that, which, whose, and whom. So when you have adjective clauses, what's an adjective clause? An adjective clause is a clause that acts like an adjective and describes a noun. Who is French modifies Jack. So therefore, this entire dependent clause is an adjective clause. So this whole thing, so when you have an adjective clause at the beginning of a sentence, then you have 2 commas. When you have so here, Jack, who is French, speaks French, lives in Paris. I think that was the original sentence, not speaks French. Lives in Paris. Lives in Paris. The table, which is antique, is made of wood. So if you have an adjective phrase at the beginning of a sentence, you need two commas. So you need to know the difference between a dependent clause, which is simply an incomplete thought, and then an adjective clause, which is also a dependent clause, but it modifies a subject, so that transforms that dependent clause into an adjective clause. So as soon as you realize it's an adjective clause and it's at the beginning of the sentence, then you need two commas. Okay, so that's also known as an appositive. So if you want to Google that, then you know where to Google that. And so here are some examples of how we transform a independent clause into a dependent clause. I walk the dog, so that's an independent clause. I chew gum while I walk the dog. So when the dependent clause comes at the end of the sentence, no comma. Then when the dependent clause comes at the beginning of the sentence, while I walk the dog, comma, I chew gum. When I walk the dog, I chew gum. And then here you have the same thing. Since I became a nurse, comma, I feel fulfilled. While I was growing up, I always wanted to be a nurse. And so here you're going to notice that while I was growing up, while growing up, and growing up, all of these means the same thing. So that growing up, while I was growing up is the complete dependent clause. While growing up, you take away the I and the was. This is known as a reduced adjective clause or a reduced dependent clause. And so when you have a reduced dependent clause, you still have to have a comma at the beginning of the sentence. So while growing up, I always wanted to be a nurse. Growing up, I always wanted to be a nurse. So all of these are dependent clauses that come at the beginning of the sentence that need a comma. So you need to also be able to recognize when you see a reduced adjective, a reduced dependent clause. And then you could always Google reduced dependent clause or reduced adjective clause for if you want to see more, if you want to read more about it. Reduced adjective clause and reduced dependent clause for more on that. As a nurse, comma, I have a job with benefits. So and then when the dependent clause comes after the verb at the end of the sentence, you don't need a comma. So that's pretty much it. So here is John eats very little, although he is fat. So although he is fat is the dependent clause that comes at the end of the sentence. You don't need a comma. So let's do a quiz question. Is everybody good so far? Okay. When Karen's mother returned to college this year, the entire family had to help out with the housework. Where is the missing comma? First you have to find where's the dependent clause. And wherever that dependent clause ends, that's where you put the comma. So as you read this, so where are we? What do I? Yes, after a year. So we're going to put the comma here. That's where it belongs. That's where the missing comma is. So when Karen's mother returned to college this year, comma, the entire family had to help out with the housework. So the answer is A, after year. So I have to do this for the next generation of students. So when Karen's mother, so this goes back to the rule, when a dependent clause is at the beginning of a sentence, then we use a comma. And here I have more about comma usage with adjective clauses and or relative clauses. And so when I told you already that if you have an adjective clause, then you have two commas at the beginning of the sentence, and then when the adjective clause is at the end of the sentence, you only have one comma. That's the only new rule I added, is that if the adjective clause is at the beginning of the sentence, two commas. If the adjective clause is at the end of the sentence, one comma. Okay, so that's new. So the cactus plant, which is sold at high prices. So which is sold at high prices is an adjective clause that modifies the cactus plant. So here you have a comma before the adjective clause, and then you have a comma after the adjective clause. So before the word which and after the word prices. So if they ask you on the quiz, where do I put the commas? You would say before the word which, after the word prices. So that would be the correct answer. But if the adjective clause is at the end of the sentence, it only takes one. I bought a rare cactus plant which is sold at high prices. And so here you would use 1 comma. And then if you're using which, that's formal English. The table which is made of wood is antique, 2 commas there, and that's formal English. The table that is made of wood, that's when you're talking to your friends and family, we use that. So that's informal English. So there is a difference between that and which, even though they have the exact same meaning, but the nuance is that if you're talking to your boss, you're going to use which. If you're talking to your grandmother or your friends, you're going to use that. And that can be used for people or things. Now, if you're going to use who is way more formal than that. So you only use that when you're talking to your friends, and you use who and which when you're talking to your boss. So you would use which for things and who for people. You actually differentiate which is which when you're talking formally. Then when you're talking with friends, you don't care if you're saying the table that, or the person, or Jennifer that sort of thing. And so person or things. So does everybody get that? Is that good? All right. And so here you have, so when you have a relative clause that is not necessary to the sentence, then use clauses between the relative clause. That means that you don't really need that adjective clause in order for the sentence to make sense. And so if you have an unnecessary adjective clause that's at the beginning of the sentence, you use two commas. Same thing, and this is known as an appositive, okay? So you could look that up. You could also look that up because some books call it an adjective clause, some books call it a relative clause, and also some books call it restricted and non-restricted clauses, also known as relative clauses. So those of you who are, and also adjective clauses, they all mean the same thing, by the way. So if you look up your different grammar books, some grammar books are going to call this an appositive, some grammar books are going to call this restricted and non-restricted clauses, and other grammar books are simply going to call it adjective clauses, reduced, and that sort of thing. So, but you don't have to remember all of that. It's only people who are interested in doing more research and learning more about this. So large cactus plants, which now sell for very high prices, are being stolen from national parks and protected areas. And so here you have which now sell for very high prices is an adjective clause that modifies large cactus plants. And so here the quiz question is, where do we place the missing comma? Anybody? Laura?
After the plans and before prices, or after prices?
Okay, all right. I couldn't tell if that was Lauren who said it or not. Was that Lauren who said that?
No, that was me, Sarah.
Oh, okay.
I don't, shouldn't it be after plants?
Yes. You got it right. You did get it right. After plants and before and after prices.
Yeah, the answer it says before prices. That's why I was like, wait a minute.
It should be after plants and after prices. Although it might be that your quiz might have it slightly wrong, but we know that it's after two different words, even if they have the after and before wrong, because we know it's not just only after plants. We know it's not just after prices, and so therefore the answer is which now sell for very high prices. So let me take away the answer so that the next batch of students will be stumped. Yeah. Okay. Why is A the correct? Oh, we already went over that. The next one. The demonstrators protesting nuclear arms carried signs reading, "Humans have never invented a weapon they haven't used." Where is there a missing comma?
After weapon?
Yeah, because I wrote why is B the correct answer. Yeah, so when you have a adjective, this is a little harder. When you have an adjective clause at the end of the sentence, you need 1 comma. And then if you have an adjective clause at the beginning of the sentence, you need 2 commas. So this sentence is an excellent illustration of that rule in one sentence. You see it? Isn't that exciting? I don't think it excites you. No, it doesn't. So two commas for an adjective clause at the beginning of the sentence, and then one at the do you need another example? So if I were to say, the table that is made of wood is antique. And so here, that is made of wood has two of them. Or the table that is antique, no, that doesn't, the table is antique, is made of wood. No, that doesn't. Okay, I can't seem to make it, I don't remember how to do that. But anyway, so it becomes at the end of the sentence. I can't come up with one to give an example. But hopefully I have one here. So here, the demonstrators protesting nuclear arms carried signs reading, oh, we already did this one. The person that is smart gets good grades. So here you have two commas. The person who is smart gets good grades. The table which is made of wood is old. The table, so all of this is contrasting that and which. So when we say the person that's conversational. So we use that when we're talking informally to our friends and family. Who, we use who when we're talking to our boss. The person who is smart gets good grades. The table which is made of wood, we use informal situations, and then we use that in informal situations. So that's it for commas and comma usage. Well, at least for that. Then we also use commas when we are doing comma usage after coordinating conjunctions. So coordinating conjunction joins two sentences of equal importance together. Fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, so, yet. So whenever you have two independent clauses joined together by coordinating conjunctions, that's known as a compound sentence. And so when we have fanboys, we always have a comma that occurs before the fanboys. While, John is smart, comma, but Mary is stupid. So every time you have fanboys, you always have a comma before the fanboys. John gets good grades, comma, for he studies hard. Steve eats very little, comma, yet he is overweight. John eats dinner at Steve's house, comma, and he loves to play piano. So the rule is use a comma after a coordinating or before a coordinating conjunction. So Mary is tall, but John is short. John is fat, but he eats very little. And then you have many. Yes.
Like you talked about using Grammarly, and I do use it when I'm writing my papers. Sometimes if I have put and in a sentence, sometimes it'll suggest to put the comma there, and sometimes it'll suggest
that's called the Oxford comma. Okay, sometimes you can use, that's got to do with British and American English, and it's got to do with Oxford commas, and you don't have to worry about that. In American English, we put the comma before the fanboys, and in British English, the Oxford comma, it's optional. So, since we're in America, we're going to go by American English. So in American English, we actually put the comma before the fanboys. And so you could look up Oxford comma if you want to learn. It's kind of complicated, and since it's not on the quiz, so when not to use and, but, for, nor, when to use the comma for this. But for American English, we always put the comma before and, but. It's actually voluntary. Some English teachers will say, oh, well, you don't have to do it if you don't want to. It's stylistic and all that kind of stuff. It's like this huge argument, and you can look it up on the internet. I don't remember all the details. You can also look up Grammar Girl. On her blog, she covers a lot of grammar. She has a blog, and she covers all of this grammar, all these grammar issues. So I just simply teach students that when you see fanboys, you put a comma there, because that's what your quiz and American English requires. Also, if you're a reporter, I believe that's also voluntary to put in that comma for the AP. So that's probably what you were looking at. Is that about right? Yeah. So if you want,
Yeah,
if you want to
that's
learn,
right.
if you want to learn more about it, you can look up Oxford comma. Among grammar Nazis, that's a big issue. They all talk about it. All the grammar teachers. Unfortunately, I never got into it, and all I know is, yeah, that's for British English and that's for American English. And one footnote: British English around the world is considered more correct, more formal, more elegant than American English. American English around the world is considered conversational and idiomatic, in other words, more informal. So you could say that using the Oxford comma makes your English more formal because it makes it more British English, whereas using the comma as in American English makes it more conversational. But Americans don't know the difference, and so for Americans, you would put in the comma. And if you want much more about that, you can look at it. Because some people are fascinated by that sort of, why is the difference? There's a whole story about it that I can't remember off the top of my head, about the whole thing. People make a big deal out of it. Anybody care about the story and going to look it up? Why about the Oxford comma? You could do that if you want.
I might, yeah.
So it's a big thing internationally. So here, you could have many different ways of saying but. So John is fat, but he eats very little. So if you use a coordinating conjunction, you put a comma there. However, you can also say however, in other words. In other words, you can use transition words of opposition in order to vary your essay. So then when you use a transition word, you could say John is fat, period. However, comma, he eats very little. Or you could say John is fat, semicolon. However, comma, he eats very little. Now the difference in meaning is that John is fat, period. That's finished. Then next sentence, however, he eats very little. Or you could say John is fat, however, he eats very little. It's up to you stylistically as the writer which one you want your reader to read. So that's how you would have a difference between the two. Okay? So here yeah.
It's semicolon.
Yeah.
That kind of confuses me a lot.
Semicolon.
Is there a place where you shouldn't use them?
Semicolon also is another way of writing and. When you want to put together, when you want to connect sentences that are similar in meaning together, like in your thesis statement, you would use a semicolon to separate the reasons. So if I say topic plus opinion, then reason 1, semicolon, reason 2, semicolon, reason 3. Then your thesis statement can become one whole sentence that expresses the main idea of your essay. So semicolon, just a shortened way of saying and. That's what a semicolon.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, and then of course you're probably confusing it with this, which means that you're making a list, and then suddenly you have and then suddenly you have that, and then you have the colon. You have a colon, and this is a semicolon. This is a colon. So this you use in lists. So John brought to the picnic pickles and the following foods is what John brought to the picnic. Then colon. Pickles, comma, drinks, comma, whatever. So whenever you're listing something, then you use colon, and then semicolon is used when it means and. Okay. All right. So everybody, here's a quiz question about where you place the comma. I had left my wallet on the store counter, but the clerk called me at home to say that it was safe. Where is there a missing comma?
After the word counter?
Yeah, after the word counter. Yeah, so that here you have, and that's where it is. So the answer is B, after the word counter. So the answer is B, because you always need a comma before coordinating conjunctions and, but, for, nor, so, yet. Is that everything clear on that? Okay, actually you're the second person to ask about the Oxford comma. Not many people ask about that. You know what? I'm going to put in a whole lesson on Oxford comma now that I think about it for the next batch. And I'm going to remember that as Sarah's question. I always remember the student's name. Okay, contractions. So when you use contractions, you should write out your contractions so that you have a more formal English. So if we say I'm, he's, she's, there, we're, you're, it's, That's just a shortcut in conversational English for I am, he is, she is, they are, we are, you are, it is. So if I'm writing to my friends and family, it's okay for me to use contractions like that. But if I'm going to write to my teacher, write my paper, write something formal, then I would write out my contractions and I would write I am, he is, she is. And you skip out, you don't bother with the contractions. And one thing you got to notice about contractions is we use an apostrophe, okay, in order to have a contraction. So here, it's a nice day, is not correct. And the proper contraction is it apostrophe s contraction. The dog wagged its tail. Here, this is not a contraction. This is a review of last week. So his, hers, yours, theirs, its. Remember this from week 3? All the different pronouns. So your means you are. Your is possessive pronoun. So here, you're crazy to go into the sea water in the winter time. And then it's incorrect to say you're crazy to go into the sea water in the winter time. Your wallet is filled with money. So that's correct. And it's incorrect to say your wallet is filled with money. And so here is a quiz question. I am sure, which is it? Is it you or is it your? What would be the correct answer? Is it
Yours, like you, or Y-O-U, is yours going to?
Yeah, it's the first one. Yeah. I am sure you are going to think I am crazy. So that is you are is the correct answer. If he understands the circumstances, and then I think this became blank, make the correct choice. I forgot to change it from the last time I did it with students. So here we know that he will make the correct choice. Everybody get it about contractions?
Yep.
When to spell out numbers. So numbers, 536. So here we write out the number 500, and he has 536. He has 530. In other words, when you have long numbers, you can write out the number. If you have a short number, you just write the digit of the number, okay? Or the other way around. What did I say?
I thought it was the other way around.
It probably is. I probably just said it wrong. So let me take a look at the, you spell out numbers that are fewer than 3 words. So spell out a number under 10. And so if you have numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, so if it's under 3 words, then you write out the number. So under 3 words, you would write out 57. If it's a long number, then you put in the number. That's it. Yeah. You would just write the digit. So if it's a long number like 1,000, if it's more than 3 numbers, so this is 1,201, so you just write the number because it's got three numbers. But if it's like 129, then you go 129. So anything under 3 digits, we can write it out. Anything over 4 digits, we just write the digit. Yeah, that was it. So under 12, and of course under 12, everything is written out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And so like 5, what's wrong with 5-paragraph essay structure? I do that all the time. If you see in all my notes, what's wrong with that? How would I correct? Yeah, I'm supposed to write 5, correct. So I always make that mistake. So it should be 5-paragraph, it actually looks better too, come to think of it. 5-paragraph essay structure. And so I actually wrote that. So I have 72 shoes, or I have 72 shoes. And so here, if it's 72, like that's less than 3 digits, then we write out, I have 72 shoes. So spell it out if it has less than 3 words. 3 words. So we will have the reports for you in 72 hours. 72 can be written 72, which is fewer than 3 words, so it needs to be spelled out. However, use numbers to show dates, times, addresses, percentages, chapters of books. So chapter 2, October 31st, 1000 Bateman Avenue, and 45%. And so here, select which sentence contains the correct use of numbers. We'll have a report for you in 72 hours. She has 1,345. So this one's correct. I forgot to put in all the letters. So that one's correct. So we write out all of the, she has $1,345. This is incorrect because it's got more than 3 words. So therefore, you would just write out the digit. So the correct one would be she has 1,345. So this one is correct. Does everybody get that? So if you have more than 3 words, you write it out. Less than 3 words, you spell it out. And when you have an abbreviation, okay, you can only use standard abbreviations in English, in writing. You cannot use text messaging. You cannot say LOL. That's not proper English. So only standard abbreviations are used in academic writing. If it is not standard, then spell it out for clarity. TESOL stands for Teaching English as a Second Language. So when you write your paper, the first time you use an abbreviation, you should write out that abbreviation. And then afterwards, then you could say TESOL, TESOL, TESOL. Just so in your first paragraph, or anytime the first time you use an abbreviation, you have to write it out. And then after that, you don't have to write it out. So yes.
I use CNA in mine, or so far, but then like in parentheses, I wrote out what it meant.
Yes, that's basically what you do. That's what I think that's what I did. TESOL, and then then you write out, as long as you indicate to the reader what the abbreviation means the first time you use it, then you're doing it correctly. Does that answer your question? And only standard abbreviations should be used. If it is not standard, then spell it out for clarity. And of course, on the quiz, it's going to be true or false. Are standard abbreviations used in academic writing? And of course, you would say that's true. We don't use text messaging. So always write out which sentence contains. So USC is great, but you have to write out USC, because if you're not local to Los Angeles, in Los Angeles, USC means University of Southern California. But if you go south, University of South Carolina. So USC actually has 2 USCs. And then we don't say you are good. I actually had an 8th grade student who insisted that you spell U with the letter U and R with the letter R. I remember we were at a tutoring session, brother and sister. And the brother was in 8th grade, the sister's in 2nd grade. And then I remember as I was trying to tell the older brother, you're supposed to spell out U, S-Y-O-U. So I was trying to say, okay, John, to the older brother, how do we spell out U? Then the younger sister sitting nearby was listening in going, Y-O-U. That's how you, a little kid, 2nd grader was telling her brother, you don't know how to spell that? I know how to spell it, and I'm in 2nd grade. And the whole room erupted in laughter, and he just simply turned red. So, the little sister totally enjoyed making fun of her brother. I remember that was really, it was cute. She insisted A-R-E. You don't say R. And he kept turning red and stuff like that. And the rest of the room just thought it was so cute. She was standing there and she was doing this because she was doing an imitation of her mother, basically, because that's how her mother would do. And so that was very funny. And I saw the mother do that at the parent conference, and I would see her do this. So now the 2nd grader's doing the exact same. It was hilarious. Anyway, I will text you the directs to my house later today. And so this is the sentence that contains incorrect, because we don't say you, we don't say directs. That's all text language. And to this day, every time I teach this lesson, I see that cute little 2nd grader going like this, exactly like her mother. Do these sentences have correct abbreviations? Yes or no? And the answer is yes. The FBI distributes a most wanted list. My psychology class is taught by Dr. Kathleen Smith, PhD. All right, so here we're on the fun part. So let's see if anybody can remember what we just learned. So large cactus plants, which now sell for very high prices, are being stolen from national parks and protected desert areas. Where is there a missing comma, Sam?
B.
Yes,
After plants and
after
prices.
plants and prices. And Kelly, which sentence contains incorrect abbreviations? The FBI distributes a most wanted list. My psychology course is taught by Kathleen Smith, or I will text you the directs to my house later today.
C.
C. And then Lauren, Pick the sentence that puts the quotation marks in the correct place. So which one is correct? A, B, or C? Which one has all of the quotation marks?
B.
B. Yeah, let me see. Find a truly original idea. Yeah, you got the beginning quotation mark and the ending quotation mark, and you have italicized a beautiful mind. Excellent. Yes, so B. Does everybody get that? Did I go too fast? Okay, I'm going to the next one. So, Sam, I am sure A or B?
A.
A. Select the following sentence that shows proper capitalization. Sarah? C. Yes, C. The grandchildren showed great respect for Grandma Janet. Okay. 6. True or false? Kelly? Only standard abbreviations should be used in academic writing. True or false?
I'm reading it. That'd be true.
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 Excellent. And then Sam, my dad's favorite saying is, don't pull tomorrow's cloud over today's sunshine. Where is the missing quotation mark?
Before don't.
Excellent. And then Sarah, choose the correct sentence. I can't seem to find the keys. This is the first time you weren't late. If you aren't going to make it, please call. C, because here you have a comma after the dependent clause, and all of these are missing an apostrophe. Here you're missing an apostrophe, and here you're missing, and plus you have weren't and late. For some reason, they run together. I don't think weren't and late are run together on your quiz. I believe it looks like this, and minus the this. Yeah, that's what it looks like on your quiz. Choose the sentence that puts the quotation marks in the proper place. Sam, which is correct?
C.
C. Yeah, you got to make sure it has a beginning quotation mark and an ending quotation mark. Which one shows proper capitalization? Kelly?
A.
A slightly more peaceful France was restored when Napoleon. Yes, that's correct. So did everybody get it? So B is wrong because here you need to capitalize this one, and C is wrong because you got to capitalize this one. Everybody get that? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Which one contains the correct use of numbers? Kelly, A or B?
B.
B. So if you have small numbers, you always spell it out. Just like 5 paragraph, I gotta remember that. Then I can remember the rule. Select the sentence that puts the quotation marks in the proper place. Lauren.
Would it be A or none of the above since the title isn't italicized?
Yeah, so none of the above is correct because the title is not italicized. Yeah. So 13. Which sentence shows proper capitalization? Sarah.
D.
Yes. President Abraham Lincoln was 16th President of the United States. Everybody get that? Okay.
Yeah.
Number 14. When Karen's mother returned to college this year, the entire family had to help out with the housework. So where do we place the comma? Sam.
After year.
Yeah, after year. Okay, so we always put a comma when the dependent clause is at the beginning of the sentence. Kelly, I had left my wallet on the store counter, but the clerk called me at home to say that it was safe. Where is the missing comma?
After counter.
After counter. And then Sarah, if he understands the circumstances, make the correct choice. Choose the correct word to complete the sentence. He will. Yes. B. The demonstrators protesting nuclear arms carried signs reading, "Humans have never invented a weapon that which they haven't used." Where is there a missing comma? Who wants to go? Anybody?
Weapon.
Yes. So here after weapon. Does everybody understand why?
Yes.
because this is a adjective clause. So when you have an adjective clause, then you have to put 1 comma if it's at the end of a sentence, and then if it's an adjective clause at the beginning of the sentence, then you have two commas. In your opinion, which sentence shows proper capitalization? Anybody?
None.
None none of the above. So let's see quickly. Russia, that's wrong. Emperor is wrong. Emperor is wrong. Yep, none of the above. Okay. Find a truly original idea. The only way, what is it they want us to do? Group of, okay, choose the, I already know the answer to this one. I already know the answer. Which
None of the
none
above.
of the above. Because I think we've done this before also. Didn't we do this already? Yeah. Probably. Anyway, so that's it. So that is your, wasn't that easy? This week is easy. Would this have been easy if you hadn't come to the quiz prep?
No.
No. Okay. So I'm glad that the quiz prep helped you. And then we already went over what is a peer review. Does anyone have any questions about what is a peer review for the week 5 forum? Because for the week 5, so what do we have to do for our week 5 forum, Sam?
We have to peer review our classmates. This like whatever we're writing now, it's gonna go for week 5, and we have to review our peers.
And how do we review our peers?
With ACE, appreciation, complimenting,
Coaching, and evaluation. That's something I do. But yeah, you don't have to grade it. So basically, you just go over this particular, does the paper have a thesis statement? Does the thesis have 3 reasons? Do the 3 reasons become the body paragraphs? Is the thesis correctly placed? Are there 5 sentences above the thesis? A lot of people make that mistake. So when you write your thesis statement, you have to have 5 sentences above the thesis in order to give it context. And then you got to make sure each paragraph is 5 to 7 sentences long. So if somebody writes a long paragraph, you could say, John, your paragraphs are too long, that sort of thing. So
Where do we find those guidelines at?
what?
Where do we find these guidelines that we use to review?
Oh,
Well, you posted this on the.
well, if you look at your email today, I just sent these lecture notes to you, so you can always use these lecture notes as your guide. So everybody just got it in their email, these exact notes, so that you can have a hard copy for yourself. So I emailed it today.
Are we uploading our rough draft and in the discussion post or as a Word document to you, or
No.
where do we?
You just cut and paste. Don't worry about the double spacing and all that stuff. Just cut and paste your rough draft into the forum, and then that way everybody can see your rough draft. So basically, you want to post your rough draft by Wednesday of week 5, and then everyone has.
We're giving out the rough draft to you this week, right?
That's week 5 is next week. This week, yes. This week you're going to give me the rough draft, and next week you're going to post that same rough draft to, not the same one, because basically this week you give me the rough draft, I'm going to give you a template or give you improvements, and then you're going to rewrite that rough draft with my, whatever feedback I give, and then that rewritten rough draft then gets posted into the week 5 forum. Does that make sense?
So this week's rough draft is due to you before Sunday, correct?
Correct. Yes. So for this week,
that's correct. No discussions on Wednesday night.
No. This for week 4, no discussions. Week 4, all you have is just the week 4 rough draft to do. That is due this Sunday. And when you hand in your week 4 rough draft, okay, we're done with this. So you can read the rest of it. And so when you do the week 4 rough draft, then you just hand it in, and then that will count as attendance for this week, since there's no forums. Okay, if you don't hand in your week 4 rough draft, then it counts as you're not in attendance, and then suddenly the school is going to start calling you and saying, oh, you want to drop the class or something, or oh, you got to take it over again, or something like that. So they think that you've just disappeared if you don't hand in your papers. So any other questions?
Yes.
You can go ahead.
So for the thesis statement that you put at the end of the first paragraph, it does it have it's because it's the like my role model is such and so because this and this. What was the question? Does it have to be like those statements like just like those your body paragraphs, those like, or do you
Yes.
have to like a longer statement?
You know, that's the thing. People confuse a narrative story with a narrative essay. When we write an essay, we make a claim and then we back it up with evidence. And so basically when you're writing your thesis statement, you're making a claim, your topic, your opinion, and then you're just backing it up with 3 reasons. Whereas if I'm writing a story, we don't have to make a claim. We just simply say the best day of my life was when I married my husband. You don't have to have 3 reasons. Then you just write your story. But when you write an essay, you would say, the best person in the world for me to marry is Steve because he is compassionate, kind, and loving. That's the difference between a narrative essay and a narrative story, in which everyone in this class tends to confuse. But why do we have to have those 3 reasons? We don't write stories like that. And I'm like, well, we're not writing stories, we're writing essays. And so that's where people get confused. And that's why we have to have, basically, an essay is nonfiction, where you make a claim and back up that claim with reasons so that your essay is not a fallacy. That's basically what it is. So you're not writing a story, you're writing an essay, which is not easy because stories are so much more fun. Whereas when you write a story, you're writing a triggering action, then you go up and up and up, suspense, then resolution. So that's the arc of a story, that's story structure. That's what I learned, that's what I teach in creative writing. However, in essay writing, you have your introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. And my elementary school students love writing stories and hate writing essays. My elementary school students equate essays with having to eat broccoli, and then they equate creative writing or stories with eating chocolate and dessert. So children are very smart that way. And adults do it too, but they just don't realize it. That's why it's so much harder to write an essay, because it's not as much fun. It's not as much fun as chocolate. So, any other questions?
Okay.
And at this
So
point,
are we using this information from week 2, or is it I don't know. I'm still confused. That's one of the reasons that I haven't started it.
oh, okay. So whatever you did your brainstorming on, you just simply extenuate it more. That's all. So you just in week 2, we wrote our outline. We wrote what we wanted to write. We did a bare outline skeleton of what it is we think we want to write about. Then in week 4, we kind of fill it in. We fill in the outline. So let's say I said, I want to be a teacher because I love students. That was my outline. Then I'm going to write in why I love students. And then I would fill in all of the paragraphs with 5 to 7 sentences with stories. So I would say, I remember my students, I forgot her name, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, and she was a Chinese, she came from China, she was 13, she knew no English. And then the first time she was able to read a book completely in English, then she realized she knew enough English, she could now go out and speak English to the Americans and didn't have to spend all her recess time with me learning English. I remember her eyes lit up and she was like, oh my God, I can now communicate. I can go out and play with the students and I have to stay with the teacher during recess. So that's why I of course make that whole story into 5 or 7 sentences. I love students, and then I would write the story saying, and my conclusion sentence would be seeing Elizabeth eyes light up is the reason why I love teaching students writing. That would be the end of that paragraph. Then the next paragraph would be, I love teaching, I love interacting with students in the forums. And then the next one would be, they all have to do, and I love giving Zoom lectures. So then each one, I would put in a separate story, probably of a different student. Each paragraph would highlight a different student. Another forum would be when I was with Donna, and she didn't know what parallel structure was. So I created, just for Donna, I created a whole video just for Donna. She was so grateful. So this is why, that's the story for why I love interacting with students in the forums. And then the last one would be Zoom lectures, would be I can show students face-to-face. Well, this is as close as you get to face-to-face in an online class. And I like to see their faces, because that's what I miss teaching online, is seeing people's eyes light up, and that sort of thing. So that's what I love. Then I would give an example of Sam. His eyes lit up when he finally understood whatever it was I was teaching, and so on and so forth. So that becomes the 3 paragraphs in which I write 3 different stories to back up my claim. I love students, I love to interact on the forums, and I love to do Zoom, in my case. So those would be the 3 reasons why I love teaching. So in your case, you could use 3 different stories to underline why this is called a multi-story narrative essay. I don't know, did I give you what is a narrative essay? I think I gave you the video, right? Yeah.
Yeah, narrative essay, just a
Yes.
narrative story.
Yeah, the other kind I would have to show in a different video at a different time. Do you have any other questions?
I have one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
But if someone else does. So with the supporting topics, the ones that we wrote in week 2, there's one that I slightly want to change. Like
Oh, yeah, you
what
can
that
change it.
supporting topic is.
Okay,
Okay.
you can
I was
change
like, I think I want to talk more on this subject rather than this one.
Yeah, you can tweak it. That's why they call it a working thesis. Working thesis means you're working on it and it can change. Usually it changes is when people do research, they read a lot of articles, and some people at first would say abortion is immoral. Then they read all these articles and realize, oh my God, it is moral. So then working thesis means you can also change your thesis 360 degrees to reflect whatever it is you're researching, you see, because that sort of thing. So that's why they call it a working thesis. It's not something written in stone. And as people do research, they do change their minds. Any other questions? No. Okay, so that means you're all ready to hand me in your thesis, not your thesis statement, your essays, because in my other class they're handing into me their thesis statements. So if you have no more questions, then I guess I can end this lecture, and I'll wish you all a great week and good luck on your quizzes. I expect to see 100% on everybody's quiz. Don't tell me what you did get, okay? Because we're all being like recorded or something. So see you all next week, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Hi.